I have the distinct pleasure, okay, it's still a distinct pleasure. It's even more so, but they're going to have to debate it. I wasn't sure if I was introducing our illustrious public defender or illustrious district attorney, somebody who I actually had worked for, and I worked for the office for about 9 years, who is just absolutely making inroads around the nation by the innovation and programs that she's setting forth as a prosecutor, as the top cop, but somebody who's blazing a path and showing other prosecutors, top cops around the state and around the country what it means not just to be hard on crime, but what it means is to be compassionate to dealing with those who are looking to better their lives and looking for the kind of alternatives other than just locking them up. Our District Attorney, Kamala Harris, is Exhibit A in showing the right way in where this city, this state, and this country has to go. Please welcome Kamala Harris.
Well, I stand here very proudly with the leadership that we have in San Francisco. And I think we all should just take a moment to really recognize what has been said about how unique we are as a city. When you have aligned, you know, they say the stars are aligned. When you have aligned the stars like Public Defender Jeff Adachi, Ross Mercarimi, Mike Hennessy, we know that we are in a special place and that these are special times. And we should feel a sense of hope and a sense of inspiration around the leadership that we have in the city. So I stand here proudly with our partners in a collaborative effort to do what we should be doing to really deal with how we are going to achieve safe communities. So I am the chief law enforcement officer for a major city in this country. And when I stand before my colleagues, the elected DAs in the California DAs Association, where I've now been elected to serve on the board of directors, when I stand in a room with my colleagues at the National District Attorneys Association, where I've been elected to be the vice president, I talk with them about why it is we need to stop having this tired old conversation that only asks two questions. Those questions being, well, are you soft on crime or are you tough on crime? And I talk with them about why we need to instead ask one question, which is, are we being smart on crime? And in that regard, let us talk about the failures, as has been mentioned, of our criminal justice system. Let's look at California as an example, where on an annual basis, we release 120,000 prisoners because they have served their time. This is not about saying there should be longer sentences. They have served their time. And within 3 years of the release of those 120,000 prisoners, within 3 years of their release, 70% recidivate. They reoffend. Is that not a failure of our system? Amen. And so when I talk with my colleagues, when I talk with people in the business community, when I go to the Chamber of Commerce, when I go to Republicans, I talk about how we are going to be smart to create and in creating safe communities and safe streets. And in that context, I talk about reentry. I talk about the program that we've created out of my office, Back on Track, under the auspices of the San Francisco Reentry Council, which has been working collaboratively side by side with the Safe Communities Reentry Council. And how we, through the Back on Track program, under the guidance of Latifah Simon, who many of you know, who started Center for Young Women's Development and has been a community activist and organizer for a long time, how we have, with those 18 through 24-year-old former drug offenders, reduced their recidivism from 50% to less than 10% here in San Francisco. I talk with them, these prosecutors, these police officers, about how that is a smart program for, among everybody else, the victims of crime. Do we not want to prevent victimization in the future? Is that not what law enforcement is about? You know, nationally, I talk with them about the fact that the FBI will share with you and tell you that, on average, in this country, only 20% of serious and violent crime results in an arrest. So if we as law enforcement have the responsibility and have sworn and taken an oath to have as our primary concern safe communities. If I only talk with you about keeping you safe by saying, I'm going to look for the longest prison sentences possible, I am necessarily falling short of my responsibility to think about how to keep you safe, because the vast majority of those cases don't even hit my desk. So, it is therefore a legitimate, if not necessary, responsibility for law enforcement to engage itself in a plan for how to keep communities safe, not only by reacting to crime when it happens, not only by prosecuting serious and violent crime when it comes to us, but also by coming up with meaningful strategies for preventing crime in the first place. So part of why, and in fact one of the main reasons why, we in the San Francisco DA's office created the first reentry unit of a DA's office in this country is because we are committed to public safety. And I would suggest to you, everyone in this room, that we define our purpose among the many reasons that we're motivated to think about where are these jobs going to come from, how will they be able to attain or hold on to those jobs without skills. When we think about former offenders in terms of their needs for support around parenting their children, when we think about former offenders in terms of their need to have meaningful housing and a living wage, when we talk about former offenders and think about seeing them not through a plate glass window but through the prism, given the multifaceted lives we all have, when we talk about our commitment to doing all of that for former offenders, please also talk about the fact that this is just simply the smart way to create safe streets. Because that resonates. And I'm going to tell you, there are a whole lot of people out there that don't necessarily care about the people you and I care about. But they do care about safe streets. So let's always remember in our conversation to do that thing about talking about reentry as just simply the policy that is about being smart on crime. I thank you all for the work that everyone in this room is doing. I thank you, Jeff Adachi, Ross Mercarimi, Mike Hennessy, for your leadership. And we should all feel very excited. Back on Track has been chosen now as a model for DA's offices around the country. The work that we're doing collaboratively around our reentry councils is also a model for this country. And once again, we in San Francisco are giving leadership to one of the biggest challenges facing not only our city, but our country. And I thank you all for your commitment. Thank you. And it's now my pleasure to introduce our great public defender, who I've known for many years because we were in law school together. Well, actually, he was a couple years older than me. But, but I know Jeff and have known him for a long time, long before we came to where we are now. And I, through that long time of knowing him, have known him always, from the first time I met him, to be absolutely and deeply committed to looking out for people who need support and help. He was a tutor in a program, the LEOP program, where it was a program, Legal Educational Opportunity for Law Students of Color. I was the president of the Black Law Student Association, and Jeff was always there figuring out who he could support and help in terms of tutorials for young law students of color and disadvantaged law students. Through his career, he has shown himself to be a fighter and to be passionate, to be authentic and honest in his true commitment to making sure that those who need a voice, those who don't have the power have the support, have the articulation around their needs in a way that he has uplifted many people. So I'm very proud to introduce the San Francisco public defender and really a leader around what can be done out of a public defender's office, Jeff Adachi.